The week of 16th to 22nd March, aviation history tells a story of progress, tragedy, and change. Let's take a look. 1918. The first Norwegian airline, Norwegian Aviation Company, is founded, flying seaplanes that could carry 3 passengers. 1919. First regular international commercial route opens between Paris and Brussels, flown by an F-60 Goliath from Farman Airlines. 1940. Boeing delivers Pan American its first Model 307 Stratoliner. 1947. First flight of the Convair 240, with American Airlines the launch customer. 1948. BOAC extends its Hong Kong service to Japan with its flying boats. 1958. Air Inter commences operations, and would eventually merge into Air France in 1997. 1960. KLM opens its first intercontinental jet service with a DC-8 from Amsterdam to New York. 1969. The first scheduled jet air service inside the Arctic Circle begins as Canadian airline Nordair inaugurates a weekly return service between Montreal and Resolution Bay. 1976. A Japan Airlines Boeing 747 makes the first non-stop flight from Tokyo to New York, taking 11.5 hours for the 6,300-mile journey. 1981. First flight of the Dornier 228, with Japan's new Central Air Service the launch customer. 1983. A Boeing 767 lands at Boeing Field in Washington after a record-breaking non-stop flight from Lisbon, Portugal. The near 5,500 miles flown non-stop constitute a record for twin-engined airliners, with the aircraft first delivered to TWA in 1984. 1985. Southwest Airlines begins flights between St. Louis and Chicago. 1996. Tupolev and NASA begin joint research into civil supersonic transports using a refurbished Tupolev 144. The research helped future second-generation supersonic transport concepts, but did not lead to a new commercial supersonic airliner. 2006. The new Kitakyushu Airport opens in Japan, on an artificial island in the western Seto Inland Sea. 2007. The Airbus 380 makes first flights to the United States, both Singapore Airlines, with SQ-25 landing in New York and SQ-38 in Los Angeles. 2011. First flight of the 747-8, with Lufthansa being the launch customer. 1931. Australian National Airways, an Avro 618, crashes in the snowy mountains while flying from Sydney to Melbourne, killing all 8 on board, in Australia's first significant airline disaster. 1950. American Airlines Flight 711, a Convair 240, strikes the ground during final approach at Springfield, killing 12 of the 35 on board. 1952. KLM Flight 592, a DC-6, crashes into a forest while navigating its approach to Frankfurt from Rome. There are 3 survivors among the 47 on board. 1955. A United States Navy Douglas DC-6 hits a cliff in Honolulu, killing 66. It's the worst air disaster in the history of Hawaii. 1960. Northwest Airlines Flight 710, a Lockheed 188 Super Electra en route from Chicago to Miami, breaks apart at 15,000 feet due to severe turbulence and crashes near Tell City in Indiana, killing all 63 on board. And only a day later, a Northwest Airlines Boeing 377 Stratocruiser makes a 300-foot emergency dive to avoid colliding with 2 Air National Guard jets over Lansing, Michigan. Among the passengers is Morris Chalfin, producer of the Holiday on Ice skating shows, whose wife and 3 children had died the previous day on Northwest Flight 710. 1962. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739, a Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation chartered by the United States military and carrying 96 American soldiers en route to South Vietnam, disappears over the Pacific Ocean. 1965. Avianca Flight 676, a DC-3, crashes into Sugarloaf Mountain shortly after departure from Bogota. All 29 on the aircraft are killed due to the pilot continuing to fly in unfavorable conditions affecting visibility. 1966. United Arab Airlines Flight 749 and Antonov 24 crashes while attempting to land at Cairo. All 30 passengers and crew on board were killed. 1969. Viasa Flight 742, a DC-9, crashes on takeoff from Maracaibo, Venezuela. All 84 passengers on board, plus 71 people on the ground, were killed. At 150 people dead, it was the worst aviation disaster in history at that time. And another United Arab Airlines crash, a non-scheduled charter flight, carrying home Muslim worshippers who had won a pilgrimage through a lottery, crashes while attempting to land in Aswan. 100 of the 105 on board the Aviation 18 are killed. 1970. Eastern Airlines Flight 1320, a DC-9 flying from Newark to Boston, was hijacked by John DeVivo, armed with a revolver. The first officer was fatally shot. The captain was shot too, but continued flying despite heavy bleeding. Although wounded, the captain managed to wrestle the gun from DeVivo and shoot him 3 times. The captain successfully landed the aircraft safely, where DeVivo was arrested. 1972. Egypt Air Flight 763, a DC-9 leased from the Yugoslav airline Inex Adria, crashes on approach to Aden, Yemen, killing all 30 passengers and crew. 1978. Bulgarian Airlines Flight 107, a Tupolev 134 scheduled from Bulgaria to Poland, crashes near the village of Gabare, killing all 73 people on board. 1979. Aeroflot Flight 1691, a Tupolev 104, crashes near Vnukovo Airport while attempting to make an emergency landing after a fire alarm is reported. 58 of the 119 on board are killed. 1982. A Garuda Indonesia Fokker 28 from Jakarta overruns the runway in bad weather at Bandar Lampung. All 27 on board are killed when the aircraft bursts into flames. 1984. Pacific Western Airlines Flight 501, a Boeing 737, suffers an uncontained engine failure during takeoff from Calgary. All 114 passengers and 5 crew are safely evacuated, but the plane burns to the ground. 1988. Avianca Flight 410, a Boeing 727, crashes into terrain near Cucuta, Colombia after takeoff as a result of pilot error. All 142 people on board die. 1992. U.S. Air Flight 405, a Fokker 28, crashes on takeoff from New York because of ice buildup, highlighting de-icing procedural flaws with delays. 27 of the 51 people on board are killed. 1997. Russian airline SAC, Flight 1023 bound for Turkey, and Antonov 24, breaks up in flight and crashes near Cherkessk due to poor maintenance. All 50 on board die. 1998. Ariana Afghan Airlines, an unscheduled Boeing 727, crashes while on approach in Kabul, killing all 45 on board. The flight may have been involved in Islamist militants' operations, as Ariana was at that time controlled by the Taliban. And Philippine Airlines Flight 137, an Airbus 320, overshoots the end of the runway while landing at Bacolod City in the Philippines, plowing through several houses. None of the passengers were harmed, but 3 people on the ground were killed and several more injured. 2001. Sal Express, a Beechcraft 1900 on an internal flight within Angola, crashes into a mountain near its destination during heavy rainfall, killing all but 1 of the 17 on board. 2007. UT Air Flight 471 crashes short of the runway in Amara, Russia. The Tupolev 134 hits the ground and rolls on its back in flames. Poor planning and handling of the foggy conditions brings charges of negligence onto the pilots. 6 passengers among the 57 on board are killed. 2009. Emirates Flight 407, an Airbus 340 flying from Melbourne to Dubai, suffers a tail strike during takeoff and returns to Melbourne Airport with no fatalities. 1912. 1928, Charles Lindbergh is presented the Medal of Honor for his solo transatlantic flight from New York to Paris in the spirit of St. Louis the year prior. His achievement led to increased trust, investment, and growth in aviation, inspiring a generation to pursue aviation careers. 1999. American Airlines announces their purchasing of the naming right of the American Airlines Center Arena in Dallas, Texas, for $195 million. 2008. Amid high fuel prices and a global recession, Delta Airlines offers voluntary severance to 30,000 staff, with about 4,000 accepting.